If you had met us 3 years ago, you would have said we were the kind of couple people secretly envied. Laura and I lived in a quiet suburb just outside of Chicago. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. I ran a small architectural design firm. She worked remotely in marketing. We had dinner together almost every night. We laughed, we touched, we made plans.
It came with silence, subtle, soft, almost invisible. Laura used to tell me everything about clients who annoyed her, about podcasts she listened to, about the neighbors' ridiculous lawn decorations. But slowly, conversations became shorter, lighter, surface level. How was your day? Fine. What did you work on? Just stuff. Just stuff. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't dramatic. It was distance. And distance is more terrifying than anger, because anger means there's still fire. Distance means someone is already gone.
It started with a name: Ethan. At first, it was harmless. Oh, Ethan loved that campaign idea. Ethan thinks my analytics breakdown was genius. Ethan says we might get promoted. I didn't even ask who Ethan was at first. I assumed he was a coworker. One night at dinner, I casually said, "So this Ethan guy sounds like he's your new best friend." She laughed, too quickly. "Oh, please, he's just on my team." Just. That word again. But here's the thing about jealousy. It doesn't explode. It simmers. I started noticing details. When her phone lit up, her face changed. A softness, a flicker of excitement, a glow I hadn't seen directed at me in months. And once, just once, I saw his name on her screen. Ethan, with a heart. She grabbed the phone before I could fully process it. "Work stuff," she said, at 10:47 p.m. Work stuff. A week later, she told me she had to go into the city for a team meetup. This wasn't unusual, but something about her energy was. She stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, changed outfits twice, chose the red dress. The red dress. She hadn't worn that since our anniversary. "You look amazing," I said. She smiled, polite, distant. "Thanks." Not for you. That's what it felt like. I spent the evening alone, tried to distract myself with work, tried not to check her location. I failed. Yes, I checked. She was at a bar downtown, the kind with dim lighting and exposed brick walls. Romantic, intimate, not exactly corporate team building. I told myself I was paranoid, insecure, dramatic, until midnight passed. Then 1 a.m. She didn't come home until almost 2. Her hair slightly messy, lipstick faded. "You smell like whiskey," I said quietly. Everyone was drinking. Was Ethan there? A pause. Too long. "Yeah, obviously." Obviously. She went to shower, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt humiliated. Not because I had proof, but because I knew. 2 days later, something happened that I still replay in my head. I came home early. I wasn't supposed to. A client meeting had been canceled. When I walked into the house, I heard laughter from upstairs. Laura's laughter. Not the polite one, the real one, the one she used to give me. My heart started pounding. I moved quietly up the stairs. The bedroom door was slightly open. I expected to see someone inside, but the room was empty. The laughter was coming from her office. I walked toward it. Before I reached the door, I heard her voice, soft, intimate. "I miss you already." Silence. Then, "No, he has no idea." My stomach dropped. He, not Mark, not my husband, he. As if I was an obstacle, an inconvenience, a piece of furniture. I stood there, frozen, unable to breathe. Then she laughed again and said something that shattered me. "Sometimes I wish I'd met you first." I stepped back before she could see me, my vision blurred. I went downstairs and slammed the front door loudly, pretending I had just arrived. Moments later, she came down the stairs. "Hey, you're home early." Too cheerful, too bright. "Yeah," I said, staring at her. "Meeting got canceled." "Everything okay?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "Perfect." That night, while she slept, I did something I never thought I would do. I went through her phone. I told myself I deserved answers. I expected flirty texts, maybe inappropriate jokes. I wasn't prepared for what I found. Thousands of messages, photos, voice notes, plans, intimate details about me, about our fights, about my habits. Or at least, I thought we did. The first crack in my marriage didn't come with lipstick on a collar. It didn't come with suspicious hotel receipts or late-night phone calls whispered in the bathroom. He knew things about my marriage that only Laura and I had ever discussed. And then I saw it. A message from Ethan, counting down the days until you're free. Her reply, "Soon, I promise." Free. Free from me. But here's where it gets worse. Scrolling further up, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A selfie. Not taken at a bar. Not at the office. Taken in our house. In our bedroom. And in the background, my jacket hanging on the chair. He had been here, inside my home, inside my space, inside my life. And suddenly, the jealousy wasn't the worst part. It was the humiliation. Because this wasn't some distant affair. This wasn't a stranger stealing my wife. This was someone who had stepped into my territory. Someone close. Too close. As I stared at Ethan's profile picture, something felt familiar. Too familiar. I zoomed in. Short, dark hair, sharp jawline, a faint scar near his eyebrow. My chest tightened. I knew that scar. I had seen it before. Not at her office, not on social media, but somewhere personal, somewhere recent. I opened my own Instagram, scrolled, stopped. There he was, standing next to me, smiling, arm around my shoulder, at our barbecue last summer. Caption: "Great night with the guys." Ethan wasn't just a coworker, he was my friend. And suddenly, everything made sense. The dinners, the jokes, the inside references, the way he'd ask about Laura casually. "How's the wife, man?" Closer than I thought, much closer. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me. My wife. And the man who was sleeping with her had shaken my hand, sat at my table, drank my beer, and laughed at my jokes. I wasn't just betrayed, I was played. But what I didn't know yet was that Ethan wasn't the only one hiding something, and the truth was even closer than him.
I didn't confront her that night. That's the thing about devastation. It doesn't always make you loud. Sometimes it makes you strategic. Laura slept beside me, peaceful, her breathing slow, steady, innocent. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise, replaying every memory of Ethan in my head. How long had he been in my life? 2 years.
We met at a networking event for small business owners. He had just launched a logistics startup. Confident, easy smile, the kind of guy who makes you feel like you've known him forever. We grabbed drinks after the event, then again the next week. Then I invited him to a barbecue. That barbecue. God, I remembered it clearly now. Laura had worn that yellow sundress. Ethan had complimented her cooking. Harmless, friendly. But there had been a look. I hadn't noticed it then. Now I couldn't unsee it.
When betrayal is exposed, your brain rewinds your entire life like surveillance footage. I remembered the way Ethan would ask about Laura. How's she doing with that client? She still running in the mornings? You're a lucky guy, man. At the time, it felt supportive. Now it felt like reconnaissance. He was gathering information, studying, positioning himself. And Laura? She had never seemed uncomfortable around him. In fact, she seemed animated. I thought it was because she liked our friends. But maybe she liked him. Maybe it had started right in front of me.
I could have confronted Laura first, but I didn't, because I wanted to see his face when he realized I knew. The humiliation had to be shared. I texted him the next morning. Me. Beer tonight? Ethan. Always, 8 p.m.? Casual, effortless. The audacity. We met at the same sports bar we always did. Same booth, same cheap neon lighting, same waitress who knew our order. He smiled when he saw me, that easy, confident smile. "Mark, you look tired, man." "Yeah, I bet I did." "Didn't sleep much," I replied. "Work stress? You have no idea."
I watched him carefully as we talked. He was relaxed, laughing, leaning back in the booth like he owned the place, like he owned my life. Halfway through his second beer, I decided to stop pretending. "So," I said calmly, "how's Laura?" The question landed differently this time. He blinked once, then smirked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said, locking eyes with him, "how is she?" There was a silence, heavy, charged, and then something happened that I will never forget. He didn't deny it. He didn't panic. He leaned forward slightly and lowered his voice.
"You know?" My throat tightened, but I nodded. He studied me for a second. Then he sighed. And what he said next wasn't apologetic. It wasn't ashamed. It was confident. I was wondering when you'd figure it out.
The room felt smaller, louder, hotter. "You've been sleeping with my wife," I said quietly. He didn't flinch. "Yes." No excuses. No, it just happened. Just yes. "Since when?" 8 months. 8 months. That's not a stake. That's a relationship. My hands were shaking under the table. "Did you ever think about what this would do to me?" He tilted his head. "She's not happy, Mark." There it was, the script. "She says you've grown distant, obsessed with work, That you don't really see her anymore. She told you that? Everything. Everything. Every insecurity, every argument, every private conversation, shared like pillow talk. You were my friend, I said. His expression softened, but not with guilt, with superiority.
I didn't plan this. It just happened. And honestly, I didn't expect it to last, but it did. He took another sip of beer. She's in love with me. The words hit like a punch. Does she love me? I asked. He hesitated, just a second, but I saw it. I don't think so. That was the moment I felt truly small. Not angry, not violent. Small, like I had already lost.
I was about to stand up, about to leave, but then something occurred to me. If they were so serious, if she was counting down the days until she was free, why hadn't she left? Why was she still in our bed, still cooking dinner, still planning a vacation for us next month? I leaned back slowly. Why hasn't she left me yet? Ethan's jaw tightened slightly.
She's working on it. Working on what? The timing. That word, timing. What does that mean? He didn't answer immediately, and that hesitation, that was the first crack in his confidence.
Then he said something that chilled me. She doesn't want you to get hurt financially. I blinked. What? She thinks if she files too suddenly, it could affect your business. She wants it to be smooth. Smooth. My wife was coordinating my emotional destruction like a corporate merger. But then Ethan added, she cares about you, Mark, just not the way she cares about me. The arrogance, as if he was doing me a favor. I stared at him, and suddenly, something didn't feel right. Not emotionally, logically. Ethan was too calm, too certain, as if he was already sure he had won. And that's when I decided not to explode, not to fight, not to beg. I smiled, and that unsettled him. You know what? I said, you're right. He frowned slightly. She deserves to be happy. Now he looked confused. I stood up. Tell her I hope you two work out. And I walked away, leaving him staring after me. When I got home, Laura was on the couch, scrolling her phone. She looked up. You're back early. Yeah, I said evenly. Ran into Ethan. Her hand froze for a split second. Oh? Yeah, we had a good talk. I watched her carefully. About what? About you. Silence. Her eyes searched my face, looking for anger, rage, pain. I gave her none, and that made her nervous. You look strange, she said quietly. Do I? Yes. I stepped closer. You deserve to be happy, Laura. Her face went pale. Mark, you don't have to hide anything anymore. And there it was. Fear. Not relief. Fear. That's when I knew this wasn't as simple as she's in love with him. There was something else. Something neither of them expected me to uncover. Because if she truly wanted him, why did she look terrified right now?
That night, after she fell asleep, I checked something I hadn't considered before. Our joint bank account. There had been small withdrawals over the last 6 months. Nothing dramatic. $800 here, $1,200 there, always labeled vaguely. Consulting, equipment. But I didn't run a consulting service, and I hadn't bought any equipment. I cross-referenced dates. Every withdrawal aligned with nights she had team events. My chest tightened. But it wasn't hotel charges. It wasn't gifts. It was transfers to an account I didn't recognize, registered under an LLC. And the name of that LLC? E-Logistics Solutions. Ethan's company. The air left my lungs. This wasn't just an affair. Money was moving from my household to him. And suddenly the humiliation turned into something darker. This wasn't love. This was strategy. I sat in the dark, staring at the bank statement. My wife wasn't just cheating. She was funding him, helping him, investing in him. And neither of them knew yet that I had just found the thread that could unravel everything. But what I was about to discover next would make the betrayal feel like the smallest part of this story. Because Ethan wasn't just taking my wife. He was taking something far more valuable. And the worst part? I had handed it to him myself.
If you're ready, Part 3 will expose the business secret Ethan had access to, why Laura's fear wasn't about divorce, and the night I decided to stop being the victim. Shall we continue?